Tundu, Lissu, would you mind, for example, if I referred to you as Ndugu Tundu Lissu? Because it seemed to me that at one time in Tanzania, everybody from the president, Rais, through the university don, up to the peasant farmer, everybody was comfortable being referred to as Ndugu.
Absolutely, Shaka. I have no problem with that.
And as a matter of fact, I was honored many, many years ago when I hosted a former Tanzanian president, Benjamin Mkapa. When I asked him if it was okay with him, if I could actually refer to him as Ndugu Rais, meaning brother president, he did not have any problems. And we enjoyed that sort of interaction for the rest of the hour. Now, what about the status of freedom, Ndugu Tundu Lissu? Because you are probably here precisely because there was a problem with freedom of expression in Tanzania.
The state of freedom of expression in Tanzania has taken a dramatic turn for the worse in the past 3 years. We have always had limitations, very serious limitations on fundamental rights and freedoms in Tanzania. Even though we got our Bill of Rights in 1984, after almost quarter century of having a constitution that did not recognize human rights during the first more than 2 decades of independence. But after 1984, we got a Bill of Rights in our constitution, but it contained very serious limitations on the exercise of various freedoms. You know,
for example?
For example, we are talking of freedom of expression. And our constitution is very clear that every person is entitled to freedom of expression. But hand in hand with that constitutional provision, we have always had laws that which made the right to free expression almost useless. For example, since 1953, we have had sedition provisions in our criminal statutes. Now, sedition is a classic offense against free speech. And the reason it was enacted in 1953 was the colonial state, the British colonial state, was getting ready legally, legislatively, to deal with the nationalist movement that was then emerging. Mm-hmm. So it is, the year is very important. 1953 is 1 year before the nationalist movement, TANU, was born. And for those who may not know our history very well, the first convict of the sedition provisions in our statute was a person known as Julius Kambarage Nyerere, who was the president of Tanganyika African National Union, and 2 other persons. One is Rashid Bagdele, who was the editor of a newspaper called Mwafrika, and another one was Robert Makange, who was an editor of a newspaper called Sauti ya Tanu. So the first people to be convicted of sedition, of this offense against free speech, mm-hmm. Baba wa Taifa, Mwalimu Nyerere, and those 2 persons I've just named. After independence, one would have expected that this colonial statute, which criminalized free speech, would go in the way of the colonial state, into the dustbin of history. But it was retained, and it has been retained to date. So, as we speak, a member of parliament like myself, I'm faced with 8 criminal cases back home, and all of them have to do with the offenses of sedition, of saying things that the powers that be do not like.
Very interesting.
And I've just given my story, but as we speak, the national chairman of my party, the largest opposition party in Tanzania, the leader of the official opposition in parliament, Honorable Freeman Mbowe, and another MP is in prison. Charged with what? Charged with sedition.
I see.
With making statements in an electoral campaign meeting which are offensive of these sedition provisions in our law.
We'll come to that
Yes.
a little bit later.
What I wanted to say was, we have seen a dramatic about turn for the worse when we speak of freedom of expression in Tanzania.
How do you react to that, Ambassador Masirinji?
Thank you, my brother Shaka Sali. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me to this very important Straight Talk Africa program.
We would like to also point out
which I've been following for quite some time, and I'm glad to meet you.
Be my guest. We would like also, for example, to thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
For getting out of your busy schedule in order to come here and participate in today's program.
I will quickly react. Thank you so much. I will quickly react to both panelists here statements. Starting with George, I commend him for admitting that he knows very little about Tanzania. So he's relying on reports he has been receiving from experts whom they send to Tanzania to collect information using the methodology which he divulged to you following the intervention you made. I'm grateful to you for raising that, because we always question the methodology used in research.
Right.
Since he doesn't know about Tanzania, I'm glad to share with him about what we have been doing. And my brother, Tundu Lissu, the member of parliament, fell short of telling what is happening now. The freedom of expression in Tanzania is entrenched in the constitution. And we have legislation implementing that expression, that freedom of expression. Mm-hmm. The Media Service Act of 1916, of which he participated in passing in Parliament, provides adequately on how to use that freedom of expression without infringing upon others' rights, which is also very important. Because you cannot have freedom of expression that can go unchecked anywhere in the world. Mm. For America, I'm privileged to have studied in America at George Washington University Law School almost 30 years ago. I learned about the history of the Seduction Act of 1798. That was repealed in 1920, December 13th. Mm. More than 100 years. Writing, making a false statement against the Congress, against the president, was criminalized, and it was harshly punishable. Not less than $10,000 US fine, and not more than 20 years jail sentence, or both. That is America. Currently in Tanzania, we have the Cyber Crimes Act, we have let me tell you one thing. Another example of freedom of expression is himself. My brother, Tundu Lissu. He has been speaking in the country. The checks that has been put on him, is to bring him before the courts of law. He's not a convict of any seduction crime. But the laws are clear, and I cannot interfere on what the court will deal with his cases. But since he left the hospital in Belgium, he has been hosted by media houses, BBC, Deutsche Welle. Here in Washington, D.C., has spoken to a few non-governmental organizations, leveling abusive and false allegations against our president, against our government, against his country, demonizing the country. Is as good as demonizing yourself. And here he is expressing himself. So the danger of allowing unchecked freedom of expression is when people abuse that right of freedom of expression, hurting others. And so you cannot leave people to hurt others when the Constitution grants rights to everyone, including public interest. When you are speaking, consider there are others who could be hurt by your speech. Consider that if you tell lies about others and damage their reputation, their character, they got hurt.
I'm afraid
so they have to react.
I'm afraid, Mr. Ambassador, time happens not to be our best ally, and I hope we will find some space in your beautiful Tanzanian heart to forgive me for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
You are tuned into Straight Talk Africa. We will have more of a discussion in a moment. Africa programs of Freedom House, Tindu Lissu, Chadema opposition member of parliament in Tanzania, Wilson Mashiringi, the Tanzania ambassador to the United States, and Robert Chagulanyi, also known as Bobby Wine, who joins us live via Skype from the Ugandan capital, Kampala. I stand, of course, corrected, Ambassador Mashiringi. That is very close to my indigenous tongue. I would say Mashiringi.
Pronounce it correctly.
Mashiringi. In my particular case, the Runyankore Ruchiga, I would say Mashiringi. In your particular case?
Masiringi.
Masiringi.
Can I finish?
I started collected here. Could you please begin from where you stopped?
Yes. Thank you for an opportunity again. I was following up on the issue raised by my brother, Tundu Lissu, that the opposition leader is incarcerated in prison. It's not correct. He's a remandee. And he's a fellow lawyer. There is a difference between a prisoner and a remandee. And he has been sent into remand after allegedly, I will say allegedly because I'm not in the country, violating the bond. And
but the question is he free, for example?
I would say he's not convicted. He's not free, but he's in custody not because of lack of freedom of expression. It's because the court, which has constitutional powers to act constitutionally and legally, has sent him to remand after violating the bond conditions. Can you relate that to his violation of expression?
Let me ask you this question here, Ambassador Mashiringi.
Yes, please. Thank you.
I hope that this time I have gotten it correct.
Yes, please.
How do you respond, for example, to some critics who say that when it comes to Tanzania, an individual has no right to own an opinion that is different from that opinion of the ruling party or state?
I have a quick answer to that. That is totally false, total fabrication. Currently, the parliament is in session. The opposition is in parliament. The chief whip, unfortunately, is out because of the tragic event, heinous act which was committed on him and caused the harm bodily harm on him. Otherwise, he was supposed to be in parliament as well. Today, by coincidence, is a low day. Our president, His Excellency Dr. John former Joseph Magufuli, the commander-in-chief, was a guest of honor, invited by the Chief Justice. The Speaker of the House was in attendance. Several legal officers, like myself and my brother Tundu Lissu, were in attendance. So if there is no one behind the bar for violating even the Media Services Act, where we have 16 newspapers, 158 radios, TVs, there are 34 social media platform licensed, 224 with the cybercrimes law. Nobody is behind the bar for violating any law that implements the freedom of expression right under the Constitution. And the regulation of freedom of expression is mandated by the Constitution. What's wrong with that? There is no violation of the Constitution. Nobody has been victimized. Whoever is charged, our presumption is that he is innocent until proved guilty. And he will be given a day in court to defend himself. My brother will be given a day in court to defend himself. But we cannot allow people to go unchecked, abuse people, make false statements, make false accusations, including demonizing the head of state, demonizing the government. I'm here as the ambassador of the United Republic of Tanzania to defend and protect the dignity of the country. So my brother coming here and trying to demonize the government, demonize the president, demonize the country, demonizing himself and demonizing me as well, we cannot call that the true need of Africa getting freedom of expression. That does not build the interests of Africa, nor build the interests of the country. That's why we are concerned if people raise the issues of freedom of expression without also acknowledging that there are also rights of others that need not to be infringed.
How do you reconcile that position with the fact that your brother here, Tindu Lissu, was nearly assassinated in the compound of the Tanzanian capital, Dodoma, during daylight at lunchtime, and his driver was not even hit by a single bullet? And this is a place, for example, he has said, and I have also found out that this is a place generally that is provided security 24/7, 24 hours a day. How do you explain that? I mean, how do you reconcile that type of freedom that you're talking about?
You cannot relate that directly without substantiated evidence with freedom of expression. My brother was attacked. We feel sorry for what happened to him. Our president expressed his dismay and condemned that act, and he ordered the law enforcement organs to investigate and get to the bottom of the matter and apprehend those who committed that criminal act against our brother. Everybody sympathizes with what happened to him. Investigation is ongoing. They are waiting for him to go back and make a statement, which he is giving to the press and non-government organizations outside the country. They are waiting for the driver. The driver hasn't presented himself to give a statement. So can you be a judge in your own cause? Can you condemn anyone and convict anyone on that matter without listening to both sides?
Tindu,
I cannot judge on that one, but...
How do you respond to that?
Thank you very much. Maybe there are a few things that need to be set straight here. I was attacked inside a government housing compound, which, as you said correctly, is guarded by armed security 24 hours, 7 days a week. And each apartment block inside that compound is guarded 24 hours, 7 days a week. And on the day of the attack, during lunch break, in the midst of parliamentary sessions, gunmen followed me from parliament inside that compound. There was no security whatsoever. All the security guards had been removed from the perimeter wall, from all the apartment blocks. So these gunmen had complete freedom of access into this heavily guarded government security, government building compound. And they rained me with bullets, and they left. And as we speak today...
Not a single bullet was fired at the driver, or at least went into the direction of the driver. Is it correct?
Well, the truth is he was not hit at all. That is the truth. I was hit 16 times. I have undergone 22 surgeries, and I'm going
Could that
for
be
another
luck, or could it be that whoever was attempting to shoot and kill you had a single target?
Obviously, I was the target. But the most important question is, who ordered the security to be removed from this government housing compound? Number one. Two, this government housing compound is secured by CCTV cameras. They were removed immediately after the attack, and there is no word to date about those CCTV cameras. They were removed by the police. That is number two. So no one knows what they saw, because no one knows where they were taken to, because the police have never said a word about where they took the CCTV cameras from. Number three, there has never been, to my understanding, and I know this because I speak to people. I speak to people in the government as well. No one has been interviewed. My neighbors, I lived in the same building with the Minister for Energy, Medad Kalemani, with the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Local Government, with the former Health Minister, Haji Mponda. Not a single one of my neighbors has been interviewed by the police. None of the people who took me to the hospital, my housemaid and the housemaid of the Deputy Speaker, when I was shot, they also shot all the cars that were, in the driveway. The tires were all flattened. So I was taken to hospital by the housemaid of the Speaker and my housemaid as well. None of them has been interviewed. I was in Nairobi together with my driver for 4 months. And during those 4 months, the Tanzanian police force they sent a request to me through my brother, who is my lawyer as well, that they would like to come to Nairobi to interview me and my driver. And we said, please come. They never showed up. So, and of course, after I was transferred to Belgium, now the excuse has become, we are waiting for Mr. Lissu to return and the driver so that they can be interviewed. But, Mr. Shaka, with all due respect to my senior brother here, a very senior lawyer in Tanzania, in Tanzania there is a law. It is called Mutual Assistance in Criminal Matters Act, which makes provisions for obtaining evidence or suspects who run out of the jurisdiction of the Tanzanian law enforcement agencies. So there is a law which would have allowed Tanzanian law enforcement agencies to come to Nairobi to take evidence from me and my driver. They have not done so. The same law would have allowed them to send police officers to Belgium, where I have been for the past 1 year. To date, they have not done so. They could have gone through the international police, Interpol, because this was a serious criminal attack. In fact, under our statutes, it's a terrorist act. I was shot for political reasons. It's terrorism. So they could have gone through the Interpol to interview me and my driver. So far, they have not done so. They could have sought the assistance of the Kenyan government or the Belgian government. We have an embassy in the Belgian government has an embassy in Dar es Salaam. The Kenyan government has an embassy in Dar es Salaam. They could have used the good offices of our diplomatic missions in Nairobi and in Brussels to have us interviewed. Nothing has happened.
I see.
And finally, just to finish, finally, according to the Tanzanian police force, there is no suspect. They do not suspect anyone. No one has been arrested. And of course, since there is no suspect and there is no arrest, no one has been prosecuted or convicted. And my brother here says the president was very clear. The president has never, ever made a statement, one way or the other, one way or the other to condemn this public political assassination on a parliamentary leader.
Has he ever called you to
never.
sympathize with you, empathize with you?
Not at all. On the contrary, Mr. Shaka Sali, it is on record because the Speaker wrote to us. There has been a huge dispute about my treatment.
Your treatment?
My treatment.
Who is paying the bills?
The Parliament of Tanzania should have paid my bills in accordance with our statutory provisions.
Yes, and why can't they pay?
Thus far, they have not paid a penny. And according to the Speaker, in Parliament, as well as in writing to us, the Speaker has said Parliament cannot foot the bill for my medical treatment because, among other things, the President has not given his permission for money to be released for that purpose. Now, to finish, under our law, the President has no powers whatsoever when it comes to decisions on medical treatment of members of Parliament.
Now, Tundu Lissu,
yes.
you have a country,
yes,
which by all intents and purposes is functioning very well. It has 3 branches of government. You have the executive led by the president. Mm-hmm. You have the judiciary, which is led by the Chief Justice.
And independent.
You have the legislature, which is led by the Speaker
yes.
of the National Assembly.
Yes.
To what extent is the judiciary and the legislature independent of the executive? Or do these arms of government really function in a manner that is subordinate to the executive?
That's a great question, Shaka. And the best answer I can give is to use President Magufuli's own statement on the matter. The President is on record telling the Speaker, and this is televised, that those troublemakers of the opposition in Parliament, kick them out of Parliament so that I will deal with them outside.
When they have no parliamentary immunity?
Chuck them out of Parliament and I will deal with them outside.
I see.
And
I see.
In the past 3 years, we have been kicked out of Parliament on numerous occasions, and the President has dealt with us heavily outside Parliament.
Using the security forces?
Using the security forces. I have been arrested on 2 occasions outside the parliamentary gate, on 2 occasions,
I see.
For making statements which are absolutely protected under our Constitution, for making statements inside Parliament.
I hate to say it,
and
but...
they wait for me outside and...
Arrest you.
And arrest me. And on all occasions, in all 8 occasions when I was arrested, I'm a lawyer, I would ask them, why are you arresting me? And the answer has always been orders from above.
From above. Very interesting. Let me go to Kampala to Bobby Wine. Bobby, are you there?